Mm.
And
Yeah, you're right. I think Samson's conviction was always being tested, and I don't I don't believe Samson understood what God really wanted for him. I asked myself, like, if let's say Samson didn't have a lust for women, what would his strength be used for as a judge? What would be the alternative? What did God intended really his strength to be for? Maybe it was to, I don't know, build higher walls or construct better agriculture. I'm just, being
yeah,
hypothetical, but it could have been because we sometimes say, like, yes, we put in all these trial and tribulations, but most of the trial and tribulations that we go through are because we put ourselves there. And Samson is an example of that. Samson,
sometimes you have to obliterate your enemies, right? That's like that's what God does. That's what he's doing with Samson. The judges. Sometimes you gotta obliterate them before they.
they obliterate you.
Yeah, yeah. Which they're trying to do, right? They're
Well,
tormenting the Israelites.
they tormented it for, we're talking about hundreds of years, and then think about that, like,
Imagine someone gets bullied. Like God, if God lives in His people, then He got bullied for 100 and something years by Baal, and
mm,
Baal lives in His people,
no,
and then he got bullied by Baal. And I was like, I'm not gonna take this bullying no more when he's a
yeah, he's
more,
above there.
yeah.
It's fascinating because then after he kills these 1,000 soldiers, I'm pretty sure the Philistines could have taken him more serious. They were, I'm pretty sure they were frightened. It's like, okay, 1,000 of my soldiers with weapons, they got mauled.
Oh yeah, yeah. They got my donkey jawbone.
That's what I'm saying. Like this guy doesn't even wear an armor.
Yeah,
Nothing. And if I'm not mistaken, the way he starts the killing of these 1,000 soldiers is like his people is asking him to surrender to the Philistines, and they find him in a cave.
yeah.
And when they find him in the cave, that's when they convince Samson, because the Philistines were going to start. I think it was like collecting and taking away their harvest and killing them. And because of that, they asked Samson to please consider surrendering. And this is when he surrenders, and they tie him up and everything. And as he's tied up, that's when he's set loose, and he says, you're gonna feel the wrath of God. So,
Oh, but before we get to the surrendering part, he also gets betrayed in how he surrenders with Delilah,
oh,
yeah, with the prostitute from the Philistines, because yeah, Samson he's a noble guy and he has a big heart. Problem is, he falls in love with the prostitute and falls in love with the Philistine prostitute that betrays him. So in that story with Delilah, Delilah is working with the Philistine soldiers, and Samson doesn't know it. So Samson loves her a lot, and Delilah asks him a question: How do you get tied up with all your strength? And Samson gives her an answer like, from a bowstring. You could tie
yeah.
my hands from a bowstring and it won't go through. And Delilah then ties his hands with the bowstring. And then at night she starts screaming, "The Philistines, Philistines!" And Samson breaks out. And there's no Philistines that are there. He was like, "Or is everything good?" Because his noble heart.
Hmm.
All right. And Delilah says, "Oh, everything's so good, but why have you?" She feels either betrayed or she feels. What's another word for feeling stupid? Like,
Yeah, she feels like he's well, that he's lying to her.
yeah,
Like and the question is, did Samson do this because he didn't trust her?
there's. I think yeah. I don't think he did trust her because there is there is that it's that could be also a test from God, a little disobedience way as well.
Because only God and him knew,
Only
and
God.
his mother.
Yeah, yeah. Only God him knew, and his mom, and Delilah doesn't only test him one time with that, with how do you get tied.
Multiple times.
Yeah, she asks him multiple times. She starts pleading with Samson. She's like, Samson, tell me. You don't love me if you don't tell me. And she's like, you're betraying me if you don't tell me. All that, all that is stuff that is said for him just to tell her. And then when Samson finally tells her, out of like, he just doesn't want to hear the pleas anymore. He doesn't want the cries. He's like, all right, like, I'll just, here goes the beans. The way you tie, I never had a razor to my head. So you had to tie, just shave my head and I could be tied.
Okay.
And at night, she saves his head, and all his strength is gone, just like that.
And since you mentioned this, like the importance of having a good partner, because in Samson's situation, he's being the most vulnerable to his partner, which is Delilah. And then when you choose the wrong partner, you see what could happen. And this is why perhaps we human beings don't like to be vulnerable, because when we expose what really hurts us, when we expose our weaknesses, it's like we feel that the betrayal can come at any moment, or what you have said can be exposed. And in that moment, it's like, what is it that you lose when you open up so much? And you see him, Samson, he loses everything.
Mhm.
He loses, you know, I would even say his connection with God. And it's not because God is not present, it's just he removed himself from the presence of God. And he betrays himself. He betrays himself by not keeping God's word, by not being obedient, and by not understanding that, yes, the love of a woman is great, but the love of God is superior and it's pure. And that's where you need to deposit your vulnerabilities. I start thinking about what you were just saying, like, where do you deposit your vulnerabilities, your secrets? And, you know, when we confess that our weakness is like Samson's, being shaved, where do we go to? Do we really seek God in those moments that we are on the lowest, like Samson was?
Mhm.
I start to ask, I'm starting to ask myself, what is Samson and Delilah trying to teach us on on that moment of betrayal? Is it, and I'll ask this to the public, like, what do you think? Do you think Delilah's more responsible or Samson's more responsible for the betrayal that happens and his capture? Let us know. You can comment. Let us know what you think. What do you think about that?
I'm trying to coexist.